So, Suzanne Kelman, thanks for being willing to interview for our streaming season performance of Over My Dead Body, the play that we had the opportunity to workshop for you and to premiere this last November of 2019.
Yeah, I got in just in time, didn't I?
That's
I think
perfect.
it was right after that we were the last of the season, right? Weren't we the last of your season?
Yeah, and what a way to end the season before the season that wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I have a few questions I'd love to ask you.
Fabulous. Go ahead.
All right. So could you talk a little bit, as a playwright, obviously you have your own process and who knows where all your ideas come from. But talk a little bit about what inspired you to write this particular comedy, Over My Dead Body, and if you can, a little bit about your own process.
Sure. And, it's good because this actually was the first thing I wrote. I mean, full stop. Before I wrote my books, before I wrote anything else, this was the first thing I wrote. And it's really interesting because I was doing the thing that we sometimes do, in the fact that I got the idea from a radio show that was on the radio, and I was listening to this show, and it was loosely about a guy who gets a job as a dead body in a play. But I remember listening to it and thinking, oh, but what about the rest of the story? Like I listened to it and I thought, I've got my clock going off. Do you want to wait a second and then edit? Or
don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. I just want to check. So anyway, and the story was basically, and I remember thinking, well, I want to know how this happens and does this work out? And my brain just started whirring, like what? So this is, I often ask myself questions, and I did it with this particular piece. It's like, if I could only get a job as a dead body, who would be the best antagonist for that? So first of all, what if I didn't really want that job? The best antagonist for that would be someone who really, really wanted it. And of course, straight away, I got these two characters, one that were both very big egos, one who really, really wanted to be taken seriously in the industry, did not want to be a dead body. And then somebody who all they did was play dead bodies for a living and took that very, very seriously. And how would it be if you took those two characters together and then build that into a farce where we knew that would just get more and more ridiculous, and of course someone's going to die, whether and so that was the process for me. And I couldn't wait. I was so excited because I felt like that premise was so fun, and there was so far you could go with that, with all the dead body jokes, like it was just that was the process for this particular piece. So, and I don't write, talking about my process, I actually never write in order. I very rarely write a story from beginning to end. And I always tell people to do that, not to just to write what comes up for you. Mm-hmm. And in this, it's interesting. The very first scene I wrote is, I think it's still in Act 1, but it's further down in Act 1, where they're actually in that first day of rehearsal. And when you come to the play, I'm talking. I have another clock going on. Very, very active here in the Kelman Wilson home. Anyway, it was so my process. That was the first scene I wrote was actually the rehearsal scene, because that was actually the most real to me, because I've been in many rehearsals. I've seen rehearsals just like that, and so that was the scene that popped up, and all the other characters started to come up from that particular piece. And so I wrote that scene first, and then I actually put the play down for quite a while and didn't write anything for about 4 or 5 years on it, because I didn't know what I was going to write. And but I've really learned to trust the process with that. If you don't know what to write, it's really good to put something aside, right? Because I believe the universe is going to come around at another point in your life and show you the next step. And that's exactly what happened with this. And later on, I knew I knew the scene that I needed. It came up when I was watching something else, and I go, I need to put that in the play, and then it took off again. So yeah, so it was an interesting one with this scene. It wasn't a straightforward process, but I knew what I wanted to see, and so I just kept going till I got there. So
right, and you got there.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And of course, we wound up having an opportunity to workshop it for you the year before, which I know then led you to go back and do a few changes before we actually then produced it, which of course is, I think in theater, is certainly a pretty common part of the process.
Yeah, I wish we did that in other plays. It would be really nice to send my book out to the audience and go, So let us know what you think, and then it come back, and then you can do a rewrite on that. It's such a smart thing to do in theatre, is to be able to workshop it with an audience, with other creative minds, with other people in the part. That is really helpful, particularly to the playwright.
Right, and I certainly know as an actor and a director that, so I can only imagine that as the playwright, there's also something about getting it off the paper and hearing actors read the parts.
Yeah.
That can completely shift how you're viewing what you just produced. And, you know, it can show up the things that you love and the things that you want to tweak. And it's such an interesting process.
It really is. It really, and I think it's interesting being English, because sometimes there were things that was in this play that I thought were hysterically funny that didn't translate to an American audience, and so it'd be interesting to see it in England. But there you go. That helps that, because you can go back in and say, oh, that really didn't work. Let's cut that. That joke just didn't it fell flat, because the American audience don't really understand that humor or where that's coming from. So it was really good to be able to like do some tweaking like that through the workshopping, which I loved. I loved that, having that process.
Yeah, yeah. I know that some writers, novelists, etc., sometimes they'll have readers that they send out their work to, you know, that their little core of people they trust to read and give feedback. But I guess it's got to be a very different, I'm just imagining it's got to be a very different process.
It's because it's live theatre. It's completely different. You know, there's a certain formula with books, but you can't have the same formula with theatre. I mean, you can to an extent. I mean, plays can take on a similar structure, but it's just such a different. It's because it's live. It's such a different animal to work with, as far as that's why you need that. That's why you need that workshopping. I really feel. You know.
Yeah, I actually find that it's one of the more exciting parts of theater. Sometimes I enjoy that process even more than the final product. You know, there's something about that. So a little bit about why OutCast? Why did you choose OutCast, both for your workshopping and for your willingness to let us premiere it?
You know, I was so grateful for OutCast, because I remember when this was finished, and I went and talked to some other actor friends of mine, and they were going, oh, you should take this to Seattle, you should workshop it here, you should go get a grant and do that. And there was all these different options on the table. And yet, when I actually looked at the play, I really wanted an opportunity to have a small black box, because I just felt that this play would really work. I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on in it, but I thought it would work well with that kind of intimacy. I love the fact that I could work with OutCast. I knew that I would have part of the process, that I'm part of the community, and I would, you know, it'd be easy for me to be in there and be working with people, and I would have a good idea for the kind of actors that we have. Such a great, you know, we have such great actors here on Whidbey Island. I really wanted to be able to bring it to the community, have the community involved in it, and then take it to the local theatre that I felt would really take this process seriously, would respect me as the playwright in it, and would just do a really good job. I mean, OutCast produces great shows, and so I knew that we would get all that, you know, that professionalism behind it, and that was just really important to me. So yeah, I was really grateful for the opportunity.
Well, we were certainly grateful that we had the opportunity. It's you know, the doing new work was not originally part of our mission, and it sort of fell in our laps like in the second or third year. And it has become such a core part of what we want to do. And I think how we're getting to be known is to be sort of an incubator space. And so holding that space once a year, at the very least for a workshopping, is kind of a fun part of our mission now. And we're, you know, getting attention like literally all across the country and a couple of other places as well. So it's kind of a fun thing for us. And of course, a black box is a very different space. I'm sure you as the playwright can imagine what would it be like now on a really big stage, you know, with all the bells and whistles. Yeah,
well, that would be fun too. But I felt like at this point in the process, to have that intimate space was perfect. That's exactly what I want. Because that was the other thing, is particularly if you're workshopping something, you don't want things to get lost or it to become too, I don't know. It just felt like that was the right kind of space for what I wanted to, with people laughing together and just that, you know. And it was about small theatre, and it was about, you know, community theatre. And I wanted to have that kind of community. If it had a very elaborate set, I don't know whether it would have translated as well as it did in the black box. So I
Yeah.
just felt like it worked for the piece, you know.
Right. And I certainly think the audience has responded.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
loved it, which was really
Yeah.
fun.
So my final question is really, this is one I think it's got to be one of the hardest things for a playwright. And at least I get that impression from some of the other playwrights that I know as well as you, which is here you have your baby that you've worked on and you've created, and now you have to kind of hand it off.
Yeah.
You have to let it go.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like sending your kid out into the world.
It is just like that.
and letting somebody else take over. And, you know, the director at this point then becomes the visioner.
Yeah.
Of how are they reading the script? How are they imagining this being played out? What are they looking for in actors to fill the roles? So how is that for you to let go and let some other director take it over?
You know what? I really do trust the process. I know that sounds odd, and you know, and there were choices that I may not have made that if I was directing, but I think that's the fun of it. And then there were some choices that were so great that I never would have thought of. And I really think that anyone coming into anything to do with theatre, it's collaborative, and you have to know that going in. And for me, I don't think it's just, I actually worked, and the reason, and was a really good experience I had a few years ago. I was working on another play where there was a playwright, and that playwright really wanted to be the director and really did not want to let go of this baby. And what I noticed happened was what it created within the team. I was working in a different part in the team. I was part of the production team, but I wasn't actually anything to do with the writing. And it made everybody very tense, and it made everybody very restricted. And what ended up happening is we had this very precious piece of theatre that nobody felt they could play in, that translated that way out to the audience. And you know, I had people come back and they were like, it's like the emperor had no clothes. We just were hearing about this forever, and it was so dry and so, you know, tight. And I know that came from that restriction. And it was such a good lesson for me, because I always thought, you know, it is better to really give freedom, to really support that process, because even though there'll be things that don't work out or things that you never envisioned that for that particular piece, to let the actors to build on what you've done, to let the director have his own vision and support that vision is a lot better than actually holding on to everything and not letting it go. I think I remembered right at the beginning when we were talking about it, you asked me if I wanted to direct. And I remember saying, no, I really don't want to direct, because I really want to bring somebody else in with fresh vision. And both the directors, we had Melinda Mack, who did the stage reading, and we had Gabe Harshman, who actually directed the actual play. And they had such great vision. I mean, both of them brought things to that I didn't see, you know. And so I actually, as hard as it is, it's kind of like you were saying about letting your child go. You can't hold on to them, because they will never be the person they're meant to be if you never let them go. Right. They have to go out and have their own experiences. And I feel like that with my play. The only thing I would totally struggle with, I think, and I haven't had this happen, but it would be, is if suddenly one of the characters did something completely different to what was expected. Like, you have a play and somebody gets murdered and it's very dark and it's not meant to be that way. I'd find that challenging only from the audience point of view. Right. You want the play to stay in the spirit of what it was created for, more so than changing lines or having the character change even, you know, sex. Maybe you have a female instead of a male in that role or whatever. I don't have any problems with that. I have more concerns with taking the story and changing it in such a way that it won't translate to the audience in the same way. So right. That's what I would struggle with more, I think. And I haven't had that happen yet, but who knows? I mean, it could, I suppose.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, and this script for sure. I mean, there is certainly the one scene, which of course we're not going to give away for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but there is that one scene where you can imagine where an audience might suddenly start wondering whether this is really dramatic as opposed to funny.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
It's going to be dark. I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's farce for you.
Yeah.
You know, farce should always have that element of, is it going to be dark all of a sudden? And of course, right. It's farce, so it won't. You know, everything's, you know, in the end, everyone's going to be okay. But yeah. You don't know for a minute, you know, right. It's going to be, you have to take it to the extreme. You know?
Right. And literally, I can remember a couple of the performances where the audience, you could almost hear the audience holding their breath.
Yeah.
in that scene.
Well, I was too. The actors were so like, there's a lot of very dramatic parts in this show, a lot of, you know, activity, and I would worry like nearly every night with some of the things, the choices those actors are making, that they would like be okay at the end of the show, you know. So yeah, it was kind of, it was fun to watch.
Good, good. And so overall, happy with how it came out?
I had a lovely experience. I was
Good.
very happy with the production. I was very happy with my experience with OutCast, and I wouldn't even hesitate to do something else with you guys. In fact, we're hoping to do. But it's like, I just thought this was the best thing ever for my very first time to doing this. It was everything that I wanted it to be. So I was very happy. Yeah.
Wonderful. And may it get produced on many other stages.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And, you know, and hopefully when people watch the clips that the streaming that you'll see how much fun the actors were having.
Right.
I mean, they really did. I mean, they really did have a lot of fun in this show. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It
was a pretty joyous experience all the way around.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, thanks for taking the time to do this. And hopefully we're going to get a lot of people to watch it now that we're going to stream it a couple of performances.
Everybody really enjoys it.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you again.
Okay.
And happy holidays.
And to you too. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.